Welcome, dear traveler. Tonight the journey takes you somewhere enclosed and fragrant and completely still. To an ancient walled rose garden at the hour when midnight has settled over everything and the roses have been giving their scent to the dark for hours. You will smell it before you find the gate. The particular way rose fragrance moves at night. Not the sharp, bright smell of roses in the afternoon sun. Something deeper than that. Something that the cool of the night draws out of the flower that the warmth of the day keeps inside. The smell of roses in the dark is the oldest version of that smell, the truest version, the one that has been moving through walled gardens like this one since the first roses were planted against the first old stone walls in the old times. If this story brought you peace tonight, subscribe to Medieval Sleep Tailies. New sleep stories are waiting for you there. Now, let everything go. Not slowly, all at once. The way the rose fragrance lets go of the flower at night, without holding anything back, without deciding to. Simply releasing into whatever air surrounds it and trusting the air to carry it where it needs to go. You do not need to hold on to anything from today. Set it at the garden gate. Leave it in the dark outside these old walls. What is inside is something else entirely. Moonlight on old stone, mist between the rose beds, the sound of an ancient fountain somewhere in the center of the garden giving its water to the dark, and the roses, simply the roses, simply the oldest and most patient smell in the world, doing what it does at midnight when the garden is dark and still and no one is watching. Feel your body right now, where it is heaviest, where it is holding what it has been holding since this morning. The shoulders most likely, the jaw, the place behind the eyes where the day accumulates and refuses to leave quietly. You do not need to push any of it away. Simply notice it, then lie down beneath it. Let whatever holds you receive the weight you have been carrying. The mattress, the floor, the earth beneath both, solid and patient, and asking nothing. Let your hands open, the way rose petals open in the moonlight, without effort. Simply the natural position of something that has finished closing for the day. Breathe in, the first faint trace of roses on the night air. Breathe out. The mist is drifting between the old beds. Breathe in. The ancient fountain is giving its water to the dark. Breathe out. The garden gate is just ahead. One more breath, then we go in. Quietly. The way this garden deserves. The smell reaches you on the path before the gate is visible. That is how it always is with this garden. The old stone walls that enclose it are high enough to keep the wind out and low enough to let the scent over. And at this hour, with the night air cool and still, and carrying everything it is given without losing any of it, the rose fragrance has been traveling out through the gaps in the old iron gate and over the tops of the ancient walls and into the dark path beyond for hours. Since the afternoon warmth left the garden and the cool of the evening began drawing out of the roses a version of their smell that only the night knows. You stop walking, not because you have decided to stop, simply because the smell reaches you and your feet do what feet do when something worth receiving arrives. They stop. They wait. They give the rest of you time to take in what the nose has already understood. The roses are in full bloom. You know this from the smell alone before you have seen a single flower. The full bloom of roses at midnight has a particular density to it, not the sharp single note of one rose in a vase. Something much fuller than that. Something that has been building since the first blooms opened weeks ago and has been adding to itself day by day as more flowers opened and the garden filled and the old stone walls held all of it inside their enclosure and let it accumulate the way warmth accumulates in a closed room. By now, it is not the smell of roses exactly. It is the smell of a garden that has been entirely given over to roses for so long that the roses have become the air itself. Breathe it in, all of it, without trying to identify any particular note within it. Simply receive the whole of it the way the night receives it, which is completely without preference, without keeping any part of it at a distance. Something happens in you when you breathe it. Something that does not require a name. A loosening somewhere in the chest. A small release of something that has been held at a slight tension since this morning and needed exactly this particular combination of night air and rose. Fragrance to finally let go, not all at once. The first layer of it, the outermost. The one that was always going to go first. The gate appears at the end of the old stone path. Ancient iron, set into the wall between two old stone pillars that have been standing at the entrance to this garden since the medieval times, when the garden was first enclosed and the first rose cuttings were pressed into the dark soil inside the new walls. The iron of the gate dark with age, its surface rough where the rust of many seasons has been, the ornate scrollwork of it just visible in the moonlight and through the bars. The garden. You stop at the gate and look through. The rose beds on both sides of the central stone path, full and heavy with bloom at this time of year, the flowers dense on every bush, every cane covered, the moonlight falling across the upper surface of the beds and turning the pale roses silver and the dark. Rose is a deep luminous color that belongs only to moonlight on red petals at midnight. Between the beds, the mist, low and soft. Sitting between the rose bushes at knee height and drifting very slowly in the direction of no wind, because there is no wind. Drifting because mist in an enclosed garden always drifts even in the stillest air, simply moving the way mist moves, without cause, without direction, simply present. And at the far end of the path, the ancient stone fountain, just visible through the mist and the roses and the length of the garden. The moonlight on the water of its basin, catching the light and throwing it back in the irregular way that moving water always throws light back. A slight glimmer, constant but not steady. The only movement in a garden that is otherwise completely still. You can hear it from here. The water, the small consistent sound of water falling from the carved stone spout into the basin below. Not loud. In a city in the day, this sound would be swallowed by everything around it. Here in this enclosed midnight garden, it is the clearest sound in the world, the only sound in the world. Every other sound that exists is outside these old stone walls, and the walls have kept it there. Inside the walls, there is only this. The water, the mist, the roses, the moonlight. Push the gate open. The old iron moves on hinges that have been here longer than anyone alive can remember. It does not creak. Someone has kept the hinges oiled across the generations, the way all the things in this ancient garden have been kept, not perfectly, not without wear, but sufficiently. The gate opens inward on its old hinges, and the gap it makes in the wall is wide enough, and the smell that comes through the gap is everything the smell outside the wall was and more. More concentrated, more complete. The full breath of the enclosed garden, coming through the opening as if it has been waiting on the other side of the iron bars for exactly this moment. Step through. The old stone flags of the path beneath your feet, worn smooth in the center from the passage of feet across the centuries. The rose beds on either side rising to waist height, and then above, the flowers close enough to touch as you walk, their petals brushing your hands if you let them, which you do. The petals extraordinarily soft against your fingers, cool from the night air, slightly damp with the dew that has been forming on every surface in the garden since the temperature dropped with the setting of the sun. The dew on your fingers cool and real, and carrying the rose oil with it. The smell intensifying where the petals have touched you. Your hands carry it now, the rose oil on your skin. The smell of the midnight garden on your fingers and your palms. Wherever you bring your hands for the rest of this night, the roses will be there too. You have been marked by this garden, welcomed by it in the only way a rose garden knows how to welcome, through scent. Through the particular intimacy of a fragrance that does not stay on the surface of the skin, but enters it. That is in you now as much as it is around you. Dear traveler, walk slowly down the old stone path. There is no hurry here. There has never been any hurry in this garden. The roses do not hurry. They open in their own time. The mist does not hurry. It drifts at the pace of something that has nowhere to arrive. The ancient fountain at the end of the path has been giving its water to the basin since before any living memory of this garden reaches, and will be giving it long after tonight. Nothing in this enclosed midnight garden has ever moved at any pace other than its own. And your own pace here, now, on this old stone path between these ancient rose beds under this particular midnight sky is slower than it was on the road that brought you here. Slower than it was this afternoon. Slower than it has been all day. Simply the pace of someone who has arrived somewhere and recognized the arriving and allowed the body to respond to it. The mist is at your ankles as you walk, drifting around your feet and parting as you pass, and closing again behind you, cool against your skin where it touches. The smell of it different from the smell of the roses above it, something cold and mineral and old. The smell of the earth this garden grows from, of the dark soil inside these ancient walls that has been growing roses for so long that the roots of the oldest plants reach deeper than any spade has gone. The mist rising from that earth at this hour, the way it has risen every night since the first stone of these walls was laid, and the first rose cutting was pressed into this ground in the old times. Stop here for a moment in the center of the garden, the gate behind you at one end of the path, the ancient fountain ahead of you at the other, the rose beds on either side, the old stone walls beyond the rose beds on all four sides, the moonlight falling straight down into this enclosed space from the sky directly above. The sky itself a perfect dark rectangle above the four walls, deep navy, dense with stars. Look up. The stars above this walled garden are extraordinary. The walls blocking the low light from every direction and leaving only what is directly above, which is this: the full depth of a clear midnight sky in old hill country where no other light has ever competed with the stars. The Milky Way crossing the rectangular sky above the garden from one old stone wall to the other. Each star burning with the particular brightness that stars have, when there is nothing between them and the eye but clean dark air. Breathe in. The rose fragrance is complete and total around you. Breathe out. The mist drifts its slow way between the old beds. Breathe in. The ancient fountain gives its water to the dark ahead. Breathe out. The old stone walls hold everything inside their silence. The stars above this ancient walled garden have been burning above it since before the first stone of the first wall was laid. They will be burning above it long after the last rose is finished and the last stone is settled back into the earth. Tonight, they are burning above you, simply above you, patient and present, and completely indifferent to the passing of this single midnight through the long and faithful count of their years. The ancient fountain draws you forward, not with any sound other than the sound it has always made. The water falling from the carved stone spout into the basin below. That small continuous sound that has been the voice of this garden at midnight since the old times when the fountain was first set into this ground and the water was first coaxed through the old stone channel from the spring above the garden wall. You have been hearing it since you stepped through the iron gate, getting slightly clearer with each step down the old stone path. Not louder, clearer. The way familiar sounds become clearer as you move toward them through still air. You leave the path, stepping off the old stone flags onto the dark earth between the rose beds. The ground softer here, giving slightly beneath your feet in the way of soil that has been turned and tended and fed across many centuries of careful cultivation. The roots of the rose bush beneath your feet in the dark, old roots, some of them as thick as your wrist, pressing through the black soil in every direction. The work of decades of growing, going on below the surface in the way that all the most important work in a garden goes on, invisibly, patiently, without any need of witness. The rose beds on either side of you now, not the paths width apart, but closer. The beds pressing toward each other, the way old rose beds press toward each other when they have been growing without restraint for long enough. The canes arching overhead, the blooms above you, and on either side of you, and very close. The smell here between the beds different from the smell on the open path, more concentrated, more immediate. The roses releasing their oil into this enclosed air between the beds and the air having nowhere to go. Simply here. Simply the smell of roses so present and so complete that it is no longer possible to say where the air ends and the fragrance begins. They are the same thing. Simply the same thing. The dew on the petals brushes your face as you move between the beds. Cool and soft, the petals themselves cool against your cheek. The dew transferring to your skin in the smallest possible way. A dampness, a coolness. The smell intensifying at the moment of contact, the way rose smell always intensifies at contact, as if the flower has been waiting for this, as if the whole elaborate structure of the bloom and the oil and the scent has been building toward exactly this moment of transfer. Your skin carrying the garden now, your face, your hands. The midnight rose garden moving through the world with you in the only way it can. Stop here between two of the oldest rose bush. You can tell they are the oldest by the thickness of their canes. The main stems as thick as old rope. Their bark gray and rough and furrowed in the way of very old wood. The kind of rose canes that have been growing since this garden was young, and have been cut back and grown again, and cut back and grown again, across so many seasons that the wood of them has become something between bark and stone, ancient, immovable, the kind of growth that is no longer trying to become anything, simply what it already is. The blooms on these old canes are the fullest in the garden, large and heavy, their petals more numerous than the younger plants. The blooms bowing slightly on their stems from their own weight. Deep red ones. The kind of red that has no single name, because the color is different in sunlight and in moonlight, and in the amber of a tallow candle, and at the edge of dawn, and here at midnight, under the full moon. It is not red at all. It is a dark, luminous color that belongs only to this hour. That cannot exist anywhere except between the moon above and the mist below in an enclosed garden where the walls keep everything that matters inside. Dear traveler, stand between these old rose canes for a moment. Let the smell of them work on you. Not the general smell of the garden, which has been working on you since the gate. This specific smell. The smell of these particular old blooms on these particular ancient canes that have been flowering in this specific spot of this specific garden since before any living memory of this place reaches. Each flower producing its oil and giving it to the air around it without any awareness of whether it is received or not, without any need of recognition, simply producing what it produces because that is what it is, and you are here, and you are receiving it, The mist has thickened between the rose beds, moving at ankle height and now at knee height. The night has been deepening since you came through the gate, and the mist deepens with the night the way. Mist always deepens in enclosed gardens when the temperature continues its slow fall toward the coldest point. It does not wet you. It is not that kind of mist. Simply cool, simply present, moving around the rose canes and around your legs with the same patient indifference, making no distinction between the ancient rose roots and your feet, including everything in its slow encompassing movement. The fountain is very close now, 10 steps perhaps. The sound of it clear and immediate, each drop of water audible as it leaves the carved stone spout and falls into the basin below. Not a torrent, a single stream, thin and consistent, patient. The same stream that has been falling from the same carved stone spout into this same basin since the medieval craftsman who made this fountain finished his work, and the water was first brought through the old stone channel from the hillside spring above. The same sound every night, whether anyone was here to receive it or not. Move toward it, the mist parting around your feet as you walk the last distance between the old rose beds to where the fountain stands at the center of this ancient garden. The rose bush is pulling back slightly here, as if they have always given this central space to the fountain, acknowledging something that was here before they were. The old stone of the fountain basin coming into full view as you approach. Gray stone, every surface of it worn smooth by the weather of many centuries. The carved detail of the old spout above the basin almost completely worn away. Simply a stone protrusion now. Simply the place the water comes from. The stone remembering its original form in the very faintest suggestion of a shape that was once deliberate. Stand at the basin edge, the old stone cool beneath your hands as you rest them on the rim, the water inside the basin dark, moving in the center where the stream from the spout strikes. It then sends small circles outward toward the basin walls and then back again. Circles crossing circles. Patterns forming and dissolving before they are complete. The moonlight on the moving surface broken and shifting. Not one reflection, but many. The moon in pieces on the dark water. Each piece a different fragment of the same light. The rose bushes pressed close on all 4 sides of the fountain, their blooms leaning inward toward the water. The petals of the nearest ones almost touching the surface of the basin. Dewdrops from the petals occasionally falling. A single drop falling into the basin from a rose bloom above, making its own small circle on the surface. the circle spreading outward and crossing the circles from the spout, and everything shifting again. The whole surface of the old basin a record of these small arrivals, each one brief, each one complete, each one already gone into the larger pattern before you have fully seen it. Breathe in. The rose smell is at its most complete here at the center of the garden. Breathe out. The water receives what falls into it without complaint. Breathe in. The old stone is cool and solid beneath your hands. Breathe out. The mist is at your waist now in the deepening night. Look into the water, the dark basin surface, the moonlight broken across it, the roses reflected in the moving water, their shapes shifting, the petals multiplied and distorted and more beautiful in the water, perhaps than they are on the canes above, more alive in their movement than in their stillness. The moon itself somewhere in the dark water, not in one place. In every place the water catches the light, above you and below you simultaneously. The garden reflected in the basin as a darker, deeper version of itself. The dark rose canes, the silver of the mist at the water level, the rectangle of night sky above the walls, all of it present in the old stone basin at your hands. You have been carrying the weight of the day in your shoulders. You notice it now. In the stillness here at the center of this ancient garden, with your hands on the old, cool stone of the fountain rim, and the roses pressing close on all sides, and the midnight smell of them completely surrounding you, and the water receiving its small continuous arrivals without effort. You notice what you have been carrying, because the garden has taken so much of it already, that what remains is the part that was always going to be the last to go, the deepest layer, the one that needed this combination of old stone and midnight roses and mist, and the sound of ancient water to finally reach it. The fountain is reaching it, the water sound working on it, the way water always works on the things that are given to it, steadily, without force, simply continuously present until the thing being worked on gives way, the way water gives way stone across the centuries. The carved detail of this old spout worn away not all at once, but drop by drop across the generations, until the stone simply released what the water asked of it. Your shoulders are releasing what the fountain is asking of them, drop by drop, breath by breath. The old garden receiving what you are giving up and making no distinction between it and everything else it has received and held since the old times. The dark soil beneath your feet, the ancient walls, the rose roots going deep, all of it simply continuing to hold what it has always held, which is this, which is you. Here at the center of the midnight garden, with the ancient fountain before you, and the old roses pressing close, and the mist at your waist, and the stars above the old walls, and everything that the day put into you finally, and completely finding somewhere other than you to rest. You know this not from any clock. There are no clocks in this ancient garden, simply from the quality of the dark. The way darkness has its own depths, the way water has depths. The surface of it, and then the middle of it, and then the part that is furthest from any light. That is where the night is now, furthest from any light. The moon has moved in its slow arc across the sky above the garden walls and is no longer directly overhead. Its light still present, but arriving at an angle now, falling across the old walls on the western side and casting a long pale shadow from the wall across the rose beds below. The garden half in silver light and half in the shadow of the wall. Two gardens almost. The lit half and the dark half. Both completely still. You have moved from the fountain. Not far. Simply to the old stone bench set against the eastern wall. The one you noticed when you first came through the gate. Its back against the ancient stone. The climbing roses arching above it from the wall behind. Their canes trained along the old iron hooks set into the mortar between the stone blocks generations ago by hands that understood roses and understood walls and understood what happens when you give each what the other needs. Sit down on the old bench. The stone cooled beneath you, not cold, simply the temperature of stone that has been holding the last of the day's warmth in its depth, and is giving it back now in the way. Old stone always gives back warmth, slowly, thoroughly, the particular coolness of ancient stone at midnight, that is never quite as cold as the air around it, because the stone remembers the sun, even when the sun is long gone. The roses arch above you, their canes trained along the old wall on either side, the blooms hanging down from above, the nearest ones close enough that their petals are within reach of your hand without rising from the bench. Pale blooms these ones, cream and white, in the moonlight almost luminous. The kind of white that is not simply the absence of color, but a positive quality of its own. The whiteness of old roses at midnight that have been growing on this old wall since before this bench was set against it. The smell here is different from the smell at the fountain. Enclosed further, the wall at your back and the rose canes arching overhead, creating a space within the space of the garden. A smaller enclosure within the larger one. The rose fragrance here not moving, simply present, simply the accumulated sweetness of the climbing blooms above you and on either side of you, pressing their scent into this small sheltered space without anywhere to go. The smell sitting in the still air around the bench, the way the warmth sits in the stone beneath you, stored, patient, simply there. You breathe it, and it breathes you. That is what it feels like now. The boundary between the outside and the inside has been dissolving since you first breathed. The garden smell on the dark path before the gate, each breath taking more of the garden in. Each exhale giving more of yourself to the garden air. Until now, here on this old bench under these pale roses, there is simply breathing happening, in and out. The rose garden and you exchanging what each has to give without keeping anything back. A garden giving its old fragrance. You giving your breath. Both of you richer for the exchange. The mist has risen. It was at ankle height when you first came through the gate, at waist height at the fountain. Now it is higher, at the level of the rose beds on either side of the bench, soft and silver, moving in the slowest possible way, around the rose canes, around the stone posts of the bench, around your legs where they extend from the bench seat. The mist making no distinction between the living and the stone, simply moving around everything with equal gentleness. The garden is completely silent now. The fountain audible still. Of course it is. The water still falling from the old carved spout into the ancient basin at the center. But from here beside the wall, with the climbing roses above, and the mist rising, and the stone at your back, it is simply the background of the garden's silence, rather than a sound within it. The sound so consistent and so familiar now that the ear has accepted it the way the ear always accepts the sounds that do not change, which is to say completely, without registering them anymore as sounds at all, simply as the texture of the quiet. The old walls are keeping watch, all four of them, rising on every side of this ancient garden to their full height. The stone of them dark at their bases, where the mist sits, and silver at their tops, where the moonlight reaches. Centuries of weather in every surface. Every crack between the old stone blocks filled with moss and with the roots of plants that have found their way into the gaps, the way plants always find their way into gaps in old stone, because old stone is always cracked, and the cracks are always an invitation. These walls have been standing since the old times, have been keeping this garden inside themselves and everything else outside since the medieval craftsmen who built them laid the first stones on the foundations, and the first roses were carried through the gate and planted in the newly turned dark soil. Since then, every winter and every summer, every storm and every still night, every midnight like this one, the walls simply there, simply holding, simply doing the work they were made to do without any recognition and without any need of it. You are inside what they are holding. Tonight, at this midnight hour, on this old stone bench under these old climbing roses in this ancient walled garden, you are what the walls are holding tonight. Dear traveler, feel the wall at your back, the old stone, cool and utterly solid, not moving, not giving, simply there, the way mountains are simply there, the way the foundations of old things are simply there. You are leaning against something that has been standing since before your grandparents were born, before their grandparents were born. Something that absorbs centuries of weather into its surface and is still here and will be here after every living thing in this garden has finished and been replaced and finished again. You're back against that. Your weight given to that. The stone receiving your weight without any effort, the way stone receives everything that is given to it. Simply there. Simply solid. Simply the most reliable thing you have leaned against in a very long time. Let more of your weight into it. All of it. The full weight of your back and your shoulders and the back of your head if you let it lean back against the old stone. The wall taking it without any acknowledgement, without any adjustment. Simply the wall, simply your weight. Both of them simply there. The pale roses above you are extraordinary in the moonlight. You have been looking at them without focusing on them since you sat down, and now you focus. The blooms hanging down from the arching canes, their petals open fully in the cool night air, more open than they are in the warmth of the day when the heat keeps something closed in them. The night has opened them completely, every petal extended to its furthest reach, the stamens at the center visible, the deep yellow of them against the white of the surrounding petals. The whole bloom giving everything it has to the midnight air above this old bench, above this old wall. And the smell of them, here, this close, looking directly up at them from the old stone, bench with the wall at your back, and the mist rising around the bench legs, and the garden silent, and the night at its deepest. The smell is not something that arrives from outside you anymore. It is simply what you are breathing. The air is roses. The roses are the air, every breath taking it deeper, every exhale returning it, the cycle complete. The garden and you, a single breathing thing. Breathe in. The pale roses release their oldest smell into the cool dark. Breathe out. The old wall receives the full weight of your back. Breathe in. The mist rises soft and silver around everything. Breathe out. The ancient fountain gives its water to the deep of the night. Your eyes are growing heavy. Not suddenly. In the way of this garden. In the way of this midnight. Slowly, without announcement. The weight of the eyelids increasing. With the same patience that the mist increases and the night deepens and the rose fragrance accumulates in the still air of this enclosed ancient place. A heaviness that is not tiredness exactly, something larger than tiredness. The heaviness of someone who has been given everything they needed and has nothing left to hold open. The pale rose blooms above. You are blurring slightly at their edges. The way things blur when the eyes are no longer working at their full capacity. The way the boundary between one thing and another softens when the effort of clear seeing has been released along with everything else. The white petals, the dark canes, the old stone wall behind them, the dark sky above, all of it still present, all of it slightly softer than it was. The garden becoming a little more like a dream and a little less like a waking place, and the difference between the two becoming very small now. The fountain at the center of the garden, the roses on the old wall above, the mist at the level of the bench and rising, the stars above the four old walls and the deep sky above. And you hear, against the ancient stone, under the pale climbing roses, in the center of this midnight garden that has been holding travelers in its fragrant, enclosed dark since the old times, and is holding you now with the same patient willingness it has always held everyone who came through the old iron gate and breathed the rose air and let the walls do their ancient work. Something is almost finished in you, the last remaining wakefulness, thin as a rose petal now, and going. There is a sleeping place in this garden. You find it the way you find all the right things in old gardens at midnight, not by looking for it, by moving toward the part of the garden that the body knows before the mind does, past the old bench, along the wall, to the far corner where the two oldest walls of the garden meet and the climbing roses from both walls have grown into each other over the centuries until they are no longer two plants, but one. A single living canopy of old rose canes and pale blooms covering the corner completely. The space beneath them low and enclosed and full of the deepest rose smell in the entire garden. Someone has prepared this place. A bed of dried rose petals on the dark earth, thick enough to lie on, gathered from the garden across many seasons and laid here in the sheltered corner under the old rose canopy. Their color faded from whatever bright red or white or pink they were when they were living on the canes above to the pale brown of old dried petals. But their smell has not faded. Dried rose petals hold their fragrance the way old stone holds warmth. Long after the thing that created it is gone. Long after anyone would expect anything to remain. The smell here beneath the old rose canopy, in the deep corner of the ancient walled garden, is the smell of every rose this garden has ever grown. All of them. Every season since the first cuttings were pressed into the dark soil in the old times. The petals on this bed, a slow accumulation, added to across the years by whoever has tended this garden, by whoever understood that the corner where the oldest walls meet is the most sheltered place in an enclosed garden, and that the most sheltered place in an enclosed garden is where rest belongs. Lower yourself onto the petal bed, the dried petals shifting slightly beneath your weight, finding the shape of you the way soft things find the shape of whatever rests on them. Your back meeting the petal bed, your head, your shoulders, your legs, every part of you received by the old dried petals and the dark earth beneath them, and the ancient roots of the rose canes going deep below that. The smell intensifying as your weight presses into the petals. The oils and the dried flowers releasing further under pressure. The smell rising around you from below now, as well as falling from the blooms above, coming from every direction simultaneously, from the earth and from the canes, and from the mist that has risen to the level of the rose canopy and is pressing gently from all sides. You are inside the rose smell completely. There is no direction from which it is not arriving, no breath that does not carry it, no part of you that it has not reached. It is not something outside you that you are breathing in. It is simply the air of this corner of this ancient garden at this hour of this midnight, complete, total, without remainder. The rose canopy above you is extraordinary. Looking up from the petal bed into the old canes of the climbing roses meeting overhead from both walls. The blooms hanging down toward you, close. The nearest ones within reach without rising. Their petals open completely in the cool midnight air, pale and luminous. The moonlight coming through the gaps in the old canes, in thin silver lines that move very slightly, and the faintest air movement reaches the high canes above the garden walls. The movement too small to feel, visible only in the shifting of the silver lines across the petal bed and across your face. silver light moving across your closed eyelids. Your eyes are closed. You may not have noticed when they closed. That is how it happens in this garden. The eyes simply finding the position they find when the body has been given everything it needs and the darkness behind. The eyelids is indistinguishable from the darkness of the enclosed garden night, and the distinction between inside and outside stops meaning anything. The fountain is still giving its water to the basin. You can hear it from here. From the far corner of the garden at the deepest hour, the water sounds smaller at this distance. Not less consistent, simply smaller. Part of the garden's silence now rather than a sound within it. The most distant thing you are aware of. Everything else closer. The dried petals beneath you. The old rose canes above you. The ancient walls on two sides of you. The mist pressing softly from every direction. The smell of every rose this garden has ever grown rising from the earth below and falling from the blooms above. Your breathing has become very slow. You may not be aware of it anymore. A breath moving in and out of the body in the way it moves. When the body is doing everything itself, and the mind is no longer directing any of it. Long, slow. The chest rising very slightly and falling. The rose fragrance traveling deeper with each breath than the one before. Into the lungs, into the blood, into whatever it is in a person that is furthest from the surface and slowest to receive, and that needed exactly this. Exactly this petal bed and these old walls and this midnight rose smell and this fountain sound and this silver moonlight through old rose canes to finally open. It has opened. Dear traveler, feel the full weight of your body on this ancient petal bed, from the back of your head to your heels. The full honest weight of a body that walked the dark path to the old iron gate tonight and breathed. The rose smelled before the gate was visible and pushed the old iron open and walked through. That stood at the fountain and let the sound of ancient water work on the day's last remaining tension. That sat on the old stone bench under the pale climbing roses and felt the wall receive the weight that you had been holding. That found this corner where the oldest walls meet and lowered itself onto the accumulated petals of every rose this garden has ever given. All of that, this body here. Your shoulders are flat on the petal bed. No distance between them and the earth. No held curve in them. No memory left in them of what they were carrying this morning, or this afternoon, or on the road that brought you to this garden tonight. Simply here. Simply the two shoulders of a body that has found the place it was always going to find at the end of this particular day. This corner this garden, these petals, this smell. Your hands are open at your sides. In the dried petals, the petals against your palms and between your fingers, the old smell of them against your skin. Warm now, the warmth your body has brought to this small space in the corner of the ancient garden. The mist on the outside of your warmth, the petals inside it, the old walls on two sides, the rose canopy above, everything holding everything, the petals holding you, the earth holding the petals, the old walls holding the earth, the ancient garden holding the walls, the old rose smell holding the ancient garden, and you inside all of it, simply inside all of it. The mist is at the level of the rose canopy now, pressing gently against the old canes from the outside. The garden inside the mist, you inside the garden. The silver light through the old canes softer, now with the mist at this height. Everything in this corner softer, the shapes of the rose canes above, the pale blooms hanging down, the walls on either side, all of it still present, all of it softer, all of it a little more like the inside of a dream, and a little less like the inside of a waking place. The old walls are keeping watch, as they have kept watch through every night of their existence. Through every midnight this garden has held. Through every traveler who found this corner and this petal bed and lay down under this rose. Canopy and breath the rose smell of every season this garden has ever lived through and was held. As you are held, the fountain gives its water, the mist holds the garden, the old roses hold the corner, the ancient walls hold everything, and the deep midnight holds the walls, and nothing more is needed, not one thing more. Sleep now, dear traveler. The roses will keep their fragrance through every remaining hour of this ancient night. The old walls will keep their watch as they have kept it since the medieval times when the first stone was laid. The fountain will keep giving its water to the basin as it has given it since the old craftsman finished his work and walked away. The mist will keep its soft enclosing presence until the morning finds its way over the old walls and the garden receives the first light of a new day without you having to do anything to make it happen. And you are already somewhere the midnight cannot follow, already deep in the rose dark, already held by something older than sleep, already home. Sleep now, dear traveler. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. The ancient walls are holding everything outside. You are allowed to let go completely. The rose fragrance is in every breath you take. You have been received by this garden completely. The old walls have been keeping watch since the medieval times. Tonight they are keeping watch for you. There is no weight left to carry in this midnight garden. The dried petals are holding you from below. You are not your worries. The ancient fountain is giving its water to the dark. You are allowed to be completely still. The mist is soft and surrounding and asking nothing. There is peace in the rose smell on every breath. You are enough. You have always been enough. The old rose canes are arching above you in the moonlight. There is nothing urgent in this ancient midnight. The garden has held travelers like you since the old times. tonight it is holding you. You are allowed to forget the day completely. Around you only roses and old stone and moonlight remain. There is no fight left for tonight. The pale blooms above you are open completely in the cool dark. You are safe inside these ancient walls. There is rest waiting in your next slow breath. The midnight garden breathes its oldest fragrance around you. There is nothing left to solve tonight. You are already drifting into the rose dark. The old walls hold you as they have always held everything given to them. You are loved. You are held. You are home. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. The ancient walls are holding everything outside. You are allowed to let go completely. The rose fragrance is in every breath you take. You have been received by this garden completely. The old walls have been keeping watch since the medieval times. Tonight they are keeping watch for you. There is no weight left to carry in this midnight garden. The dried petals are holding you from below. You are not your worries. The ancient fountain is giving its water to the dark. You are allowed to be completely still. The mist is soft and surrounding and asking nothing. There is peace in the rose smell on every breath. You are enough. You have always been enough. The old rose canes are arching above you in the moonlight. There is nothing urgent in this ancient midnight. The garden has held travelers like you since the old times. Tonight, it is holding you. You are allowed to forget the day completely. Around you only roses and old stone and moonlight remain. There is no fight left for tonight. The pale blooms above you are open completely in the cool dark. You are safe inside these ancient walls. There is rest waiting in your next slow breath. The midnight garden breathes its oldest fragrance around you. There is nothing left to solve tonight. You are already drifting into the rose dark. The old walls hold you as they have always held everything given to them. You are loved. You are held. You are home. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. The ancient walls are holding everything outside. You are allowed to let go completely. The rose fragrance is in every breath you take. You have been received by this garden completely. The old walls have been keeping watch since the medieval times. Tonight they are keeping watch for you. There is no weight left to carry in this midnight garden. The dried petals are holding you from below. You are not your worries. The ancient fountain is giving its water to the dark. You are allowed to be completely still. The mist is soft and surrounding, and asking nothing. There is peace in the rose smell on every breath. You are enough. You have always been enough. The old rose canes are arching above you in the moonlight. There is nothing urgent in this ancient midnight. The garden has held travelers like you since the old times. Tonight, it is holding you. You are allowed to forget the day completely. Around you only roses and old stone and moonlight remain. There is no fight left for tonight. The pale blooms above you are open completely in the cool dark. You are safe inside these ancient walls. There is rest waiting in your next slow breath. The midnight garden breathes its oldest fragrance around you. There is nothing left to solve tonight. You are already drifting into the rose dark. The old walls hold you as they have always held everything given to them. You are loved. You are held. You are home.